Good evening, everybody. And once again, a big welcome to another session of Kahani Adda, hosted by Kahani Kancheti. Now, today we are going to have a discussion on a person about whom actually the world knows very little, or at least I will tell you, the world knew very little. It is only in the recent past that we have started putting in a lot of information about him. And the man's name is Robert Johnson. Now, as far as Robert Johnson is concerned, let me also share this with you, is that what the world has so far are just two photographs of him. That's it. And his whole life has been retraced, starting from the point where some researchers who were working on Robert Johnson actually were able to access and locate his death certificate. Now, that gave the lead to his parents, his life, and everything else. And then they started tracking backwards. Now, what is so important about Robert Johnson? Well, Robert Johnson is blues, the blues music. And I am extremely grateful to my friend Vivek Mukherjee, who keeps attending and hosting and anchoring a lot of these programs we have on Western music, to have put me on to Robert Johnson. And today happens to be the 110th birth anniversary of Robert Johnson. Now, I, like many, was clueless about Robert Johnson and the blues, but it was Vivek who put me onto a Netflix documentary called Devils at the Crossroad, that I got onto Robert Johnson. And I then thanked Vivek and I said, thank you very much for having suggested this for Kahani Kancheti. And then I called up my friend Arjun Ghosh, who also continues to be in this world. Both Vivek and Arjun, both of them, I think they live in the post-60s and 70s and even thereafter. They think 60s and 70s as far as music is concerned, and they also write about it. Both of them are prolific writers on the rock, the pop, the blues, and what have you. So that's what got Kahani Kancheti to come and host this session today on Robert Johnson, Blues and Beyond. This is going to be the most interesting conversation, and what we are going to learn from Arjun and Vivek, believe me, is going to be mind-boggling. Now, before I introduce Arjun and Vivek to you, let me also have the pleasure of telling you something about Kahani Kancheti. Kahani Kancheti is a digital platform. We are here to discuss and deliberate on anything that covers the broad spectrum of art and culture. We have a website, www.kahanikancheti.in. And we have a Facebook page from where probably you all are watching this program right now. We run blogs. We run live shows like these on a whole spectrum of cultural issues, both Bengali and Hindi and English. So it's in three languages, really. And as a matter of fact, right at this point of time, we are running something special called the Ray 100 to celebrate the centenary of Satyajit Ray. And blogs, a special blog section has been opened up, blogs and articles on Ray. It's already there. You all can go to our website and read it. And starting tomorrow, every Sunday, we are going to discuss one major female character from one of Ray's films. We start with Mrinmoy tomorrow, but that's at 7 o'clock, and I hope that you all will turn up for that. Now, we also have partnered with Speaking Tiger, the publishers, and we also help in putting together book reviews and author chats. So Kahani Kancheti that way is a very exciting place, particularly in this time of pandemic with lockdowns. Please keep being in touch with us. Now let me introduce my guest to you. I have with me Arjun Ghosh, and that's Arjun. Arjun,
hi.
Hello. Right.
Hi.
Okay. Hi. All right. Now Arjun and I have a very special relationship because we go back to college. We both go back to college, and we also go back to well in college in our political beliefs, which were on two different spectrums altogether. And we have both been sloganeering against each other at one point of time. But then we came and caught up with advertising. And Arjun, one of the veteran advertising professionals, and we have also in between worked together. Absolutely a marvel. He's one of the most experienced copywriters, creative writers that advertising industry has produced. Earlier in Kolkata and now in Delhi, where he resides. And he is the one of my go-to men. I want an article on Woodstock. I want to do this. Can you send me something? And Arjun is always there, as I said, lives in the 60s and 70s. And the other is my good friend, Vivek Mukherjee, who has put me on to Robert. Hi. Vivek, incidentally, Vivek, incidentally, has come from the world of marketing and advertising. And we were also colleagues for a short while. He was also my client for even a shorter while. And then Vivek takes a different turn. He becomes a writer. He becomes a journalist, and that's what he's doing right now. He was the editor of Sports Illustrated's India edition. He was also the sports editor of Times of India Chandigarh edition. I am told, and I was initially surprised when I was told that he is one of the most authoritative people on Indian hockey, of all people, of all things, Indian hockey of all sports. And Vivek, incidentally, has also been in Rolling Stones and other such magazines. He writes on music all over India. And incidentally, 2 years back, he actually walked down what is called the Blue Trail in Mississippi, visiting places of pubs and other places associated with the great blues like B.B. King. And Vivek is always there in Kahani Kancheti, anchoring my programs mostly on Western music. So there we have Arjun, there we have Vivek. These are the people who know about Robert Johnson. So I will now take a back seat, but I want to start you off with something. What has been the life of Robert Johnson, and what has been his huge contribution to the world of music? And I think both are equally important. He has had a most amazing life, and he has had a most amazing contribution to the world of music. So I leave you all at that. Vivek, since you started me off on Robert Johnson, maybe you could take the lead and then Arjun can join in. And please tell us more about how things happened then and how things are happening now, right? All right, Vivek, go on.
Okay.
Take it on.
Thanks, Sujit, for first of all, thank you very much for hosting this program. And today is 8th of May, and 8th of May is 110th birth anniversary of possibly the most enigmatic and possibly the most mythical musician, blues musician that we ever had. And his enigma is wrapped in layers and layers of mystery and urban legends. So it is very difficult. I mean, we have some material in the public domain now. For example, the Netflix film in which the producers interviewed his grandson and some of his relatives and some music historians. But still, there is so much of mystery around him that what is fact, what is fiction, it is very difficult to sift through.
Absolutely.
But one thing is very certain, which is not at all mysterious, is his impact on modern blues. I mean, in many ways, of course, before him, he was born on 8th of May, 1911, and he died in 1938, barely 27 years old when he died. Well, how he died, that is also another story, which I'm sure we will get into later part of the show. But the thing is that maybe he might be enigmatic, and there might be a lot of things not known about him. He might be a very mysterious character, but what is not a mystery or a myth is his music. I mean, in his short-lived musical career, he produced some absolutely breathtaking music, and it won't be too wrong to say that he was some sort of a pioneer of the modern blues. Of course, there were musicians, very famous names in the Delta area and the Mississippi region before him, like Sonny Boy,
Son House,
Willie Brown, Elmore James. Williamson number 2, then Gatemark Moore. They were very good musicians, but he apparently, I mean, was original. If I mean, you can check me if I go off the track, but I believe that it won't be wrong to say that he had the most profound impact in modernizing blues before blues traveled through the Great Migration route to places like Chicago with Muddy Waters, and further up north to New York. And that is how the world came to know about this musician. And later on, possibly we can discuss a very quaint incident that how John Hammond, who was at that time a big music producer, and he was a big music promoter, he wanted to host Robert Johnson at the Carnegie Hall in New York,
but he just passed away.
And he had passed away. So we will come to that
just before that.
Yeah, we will come all to that later. But I mean, Arjun, I mean, what is your interpretation of Johnson, and how do you place him in the whole pantheon of great blues musicians, which is like Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, and B.B. King, and John Lee Hooker, and the greats? Where do you place?
You see, the way I saw it, and was that, in the Mississippi Delta, there were two kinds of music, right? Those days. One was the gospel music, which was in the church, and other was blues, which was in the, the juke boxes, what they used to call, where the juke joints, where they're, the dancing, the drinking, and the musicians playing. And in fact, like the people who were the religious types, they called it the devil's music. Okay. Blues was considered to be the devil's music. Okay, those days. And of this thing, it was, of course, the line is from Son House and Willie Brown down to Robert Johnson. And, you referred to that movie. There's also another interview with Son House, because Son House was a well-established blues player when Robert Johnson, he was a younger guy, and he was never and those days he wasn't a very good guitar player. In fact, Son House and Willie Brown, they wouldn't let him touch this instrument, and he used to say, can I please play it while you guys take a break? And they used to kind of chase him away. Then this myth came about. He disappeared, some say for 6 months, some say for 1 year, 1.5 years. And when he came back, and he told Son House, can I just play while you guys go off? So again, you've come to bother us. But he said, please. I said, okay. Then when he started playing, everyone's mouth just fell open, because no one had heard something like this before. And so then this whole myth came that, no one can become this kind of a musician unless you sell your soul to the devil at the crossroads. Okay, so that's how the myth came about.
Okay, but
and another thing I just wanted to, his guitar. Okay, his guitar playing, Robert Johnson's guitar playing was completely unique. No one had done it before him. If you listen to his lines, you'll feel there are two guitars playing at times. It's like one part, and the second part is answering the first part. A kind of a jugalbandi on a single guitar, which was something which was like no one had done, no one could do it. And in fact, the bluesmen of those times said that you can't do what Johnson does, because he's got this really long fingers, and the way he can play two parts at the same time. That was the complete uniqueness of Robert Johnson, which is the style which he really made his own, and everyone tried to follow it.
True.
Vivek, can I just come in for a minute, Vivek? Can I just come in for a minute? You're just talking about there are two things. One is that Johnson has been a myth, and he has been a myth, and he's been clouded in mystery. That's what we have been talking. But one particular point: why was blues music or music as such, was referred to as the devil's music? I mean, there must have been a reason for that to be termed as anything that had to do with music. The church would declare it devils. That's number one.
No,
Second thing
Okay.
yeah. The second thing I wanted to ask you all is that tell us something about the life, during the time that this was all happening, 1911. There were the sharecroppers. Tell us something about his life. He had too many splits. His father was, he had to run away because the Ku Klux Klan, the KK, got after him, and
his father had to
and then his father was actually biological father was somebody else, and all kinds of complication. And in that,
very
the devils. Yeah. So can you all throw some light on that? Talk about the times of the Mississippi.
Yeah, it was actually the peak of. Slavery might have been abolished, but that was the peak of called segregation. And I have been to the Civil Rights Museum, where they have created scenes of that time, and they play in certain sections. They play the kind of small audiovisual AVs to show what life was. Life was extremely tough. Life was extremely unfair, especially you were a black, and that was a time when lynchings were very common. Over there, there is a complete section which has got devoted. It's got walls on which all the blacks who were lynched in South, and especially in Mississippi, their names are there. So it was the conditions were very hard, and at that time there were only two. There was basically one commercial activity that was predominant there. Life revolved around that commercial activity, and that was cotton farming. And cotton farming was a very hard job. Especially cotton picking was very hard job, because picking out cotton balls, the balls are very thorny, and they would shred the fingers. So the music actually originated in the plantations. And to be very honest, initially it did not have any name. Nobody knew what this music was. If I've got a very thin book, or an excellent book called by again, he's an advertising executive turned a blues shop owner and a juke joint owner in Clarksdale, Mississippi, called Roger Stoll. He was a part-time musician, but when he went to Mississippi and discovered that, and he quit his career. He gave up everything to set up a shop there, and he has written this book called The Hidden History of Mississippi Blues. In that, he talks about that in this initial days, this did not even have a name, and it was like the first person to write that something of a authentic documentation was a gentleman called William Christopher Hendy. He was also black. He was a music producer. He was a teacher. He was a band leader, and he was also a writer. And he narrates in one of the incidents that in 1903 he was waiting at a small station just south of a place called Clarksdale, and there he was waiting for a train which was 9 hours late. And while he was waiting there is this Negro. He describes him as loose-limbed, wearing rags, and his feet, peeping out of his torn shoes. And he was carrying a guitar. So Hendy was nodding off, waiting for the train, and he jolted out of his sleep. And when he heard this sound of guitar playing, and he writes in that book that it was the strangest sound that he had ever heard. And he used, this Negro used a knife, this black guy used a knife to use it as a slider, like the Hawaiian guitarist used to use. And he was absolutely taken. He writes that life took me grabbed me by my shoulders, and so initially it did not have any name. It got the devilish touch. Why it came to be associated, possibly because of two reasons. One, because These plantation workers on the weekends would go to the what we later on came to be known as juke joints. Basically, these were small grocery stores where could just go pick up some meal, pick up some groceries, and there was obviously there was moonshine, the homemade whiskey, and they would and musicians. I mean, these plantation workers would come and start playing, and when they would start playing. The more they got drunk, the music got stretched into the night. So usually on Saturday that would happen. So on Sunday, by the time these folks would not be in any position to attend the church. So then the pastors, the padres,
maybe.
they called it that this is like a devil's music taking away from the gods. So that is one.
That also there was a lot of the dancing and the fixing up women and the sex and the drinking, all that would happen. So naturally the padris thought that was the devil's nest.
It did. I mean, some descriptions in Roger Stoll's book are like there was like massive, unending nights of debauchery, basically.
Exactly.
So they were like having a jolly good time. Who had the time to think about God and Jesus? So that's how the padres called it devil. And then, of course, by 1911, I mean, by when Johnson started playing, I mean, the devil came it became an urban legend, and it became a part of
the urban legend. It says that the blues man, if he wants to be a really great blues player, he goes to the crossroads before midnight and he starts playing something. And then, according to the legend, a huge black guy comes, the devil, and he takes his guitar from him and tunes it, plays something, gives it back. And then the blues guy, what he is supposed to sell his soul to the devil. You enter into a contract and he says, okay. He says, you go play, now you're a blues man, but I will come and take your soul one day because you've kind of signed a contract with the devil. So that was the legend of the crossroads.
Arjun, from the story you told us just now, that he goes to the crossroads and sort of, it sounds a bit like Dr. Faustus and Mephistopheles kind of a deal.
It's all the same kind of tradition. Huh?
Yeah, but
actually, the reality might be. I mean, there is another story which sounds far more real. The reality might be a lot more prosaic and a lot more mundane. That actually, when he was chased away by Sondhaus and Willie Brown for being a very bad guitar player, so he disappears. He was chased away. Basically, he was chased away from all these places where he. So he disappeared. When he disappeared, he came back to his place where he was born, a town called Hazelhurst. There he met somebody called Ike Zimmerman. Ike Zimmerman was a very accomplished guitarist of that time. Now, Johnson was so bad at that time that Zimmerman said that, okay, I will teach you, but I will teach you at the graveyard. So they used to go to the graveyard in the middle at night, and they used to play guitar. Another. I mean, that is also weak. I mean,
I know. That was probably closer to reality. So naturally, no one seriously believes that the devil comes and tunes your guitar. But it's one of those myths which came. In fact, if you've seen this film, two-part documentary on Dylan by Scorsese, which is called Bringing It All Back Home. Over there, Dylan in one interview says that, when I started off, I wasn't all that good a player. And then I went away and I practiced and I came back to New York. And I had improved so much that people started saying that, he's been to the crossroads. The myth of the crossroads.
Yeah.
So he laughs about it,
again,
but of course.
But the actual location of the crossroads
point I just wanted to throw in. I wanted to throw in a point over here. because of the stories that you're telling us, that he goes to the crossroads where he meets the devil, and Dr. Faustus and a Mephistopheles like a deal happens. And then he goes to this Zikr man who takes him to the graveyard where they sing. All this sort of created an aura around Johnson.
Exactly.
Robert Johnson. Yeah, and therefore, they said that he's a man with voodoo and black magic, and these sort of things got tagged onto him. So maybe you could talk about this black magic music, so to say. And now I wonder.
So at that time also at that time the blacks they used to, because their links with Africa was still very strong. So at that time there was also the black community used to perform something called the hoodoo, which is basically hoodoo. And that hoodoo ceremony,
which had come from Africa.
Yeah, Africa, and it was an African tradition basically to ward off evil.
Right.
You go and perform something, and that usually is performed at the crossroads between and so that the African community, the black community used to perform, was very much into hoodoo at that point of time. So that also gives kind of adds to this,
kind of added to the
urban legend.
Right. Yeah. See, also, like one that Sujit was talking about his earlier life. So once, he used to have a wife who had gone to her parents' place, which was down away from Mississippi Delta, to have his child. And he said that, okay, you go, I will join you. And then he took the opportunity to go, slowly move towards his wife's this thing, and playing in all the juke joints and things. But unfortunately, what happens is his wife, this is his first wife, dies in childbirth.
Yeah.
So he was quite cut up. So one of the songs which he composed at that time is "Love in Vain," which the Stones Rater, made it quite well known. But his original composition was Robert Johnson's, where this "Love in Vain," because that talks about how he goes to the station and how with his suitcase in his hand and he's going to meet his wife, but all his love was in vain because she had already passed away.
Right.
So that was his first.
So
and actually second, there was it wasn't his wife, but he was much later, a very young woman. He was like in love with her and wanted to marry her, but her parents were very religious. And they said, no, you're not going to have anything to do with a guy who plays the devil's music. And so that also didn't fructify.
Yeah, I mean, he lived up his life. He lived for just 27 years, but he lived every day of his life. Yeah, I mean, he enjoyed his alcohol. He was,
alcohol and Benzedrine. Those days, Benzedrine, it was the pure form of speed, which used to be given actually for heart patients those days. But he used to take Benzedrine and the Rotgut, homemade whiskey. So they used to love it.
And also he enjoyed his women. I mean,
of course. In fact, Son House in one interview says that I told Robert, hey, be careful of these women, because one of these days someone's going to stick a knife into you the way you're going. And as his death is also, there's various versions. They say that this a jealous boyfriend who he was taking away from this guy, he gave him a bottle of whiskey with strychnine, and while he was playing, they gave it to the waitress to give it, and she just put it down without knowing what was in it. And so after he finished his set, he took it and like drank straight from the bottle. But then he said, I'm not feeling too well. So his friend said, no, have another drink. Just drink it. And so he drank, and then he was very sick. And two versions again. One is that he went home to his mom's place, died there. The other version is like, Honey Boy Edwards, whose friend and fellow guitarist. He says that he took him to another friend's place, and he was like in real agony, took 2-3 days to die. Now, it's not very clear. It's not whether, this is what they say, that he was poisoned by a jealous boyfriend. So that's why. But then again, they say that he had a connective tissue disease, and that's how he died. So there are various versions of it. And of course, this version was that devil had come to claim his soul, take his soul. Because, Honey Boy says that because he was so sick, he was on all his fours on the floor and howling with pain. That people interpreted that was the hellhounds who has come to take his soul. So that was another version of it.
Yeah, that is why everything around him is so wrapped in enigma that it is very difficult to. It is difficult to find. Interestingly, after his death, not too many people outside the region knew about his existence and did not know about his contribution, what kind of a musician he was, until the Great Migration. And one of the major influences that Johnson had on one of these greatest blues musicians, Muddy Waters. And when Muddy Waters went out from Mississippi to Chicago, he took. You can say that the foundation for the global expansion of blues could be was laid down by Muddy Waters when he moved to Chicago.
And don't forget Chess, Mr. Chess, Albert Chess. He was the guy who took Muddy Waters and recorded him. And after that, Howling Wolf and all these guys just came and started recording with Chess. And of course, it got another boost is during the British invasion, because the Stones and Clapton and all, they discovered the blues in England, and through Chess, because Chess used to bring out this record catalog, and people on the know. Someone like Mick Jagger. Mick Jagger had he used to send for these records, coupons. And of course, that famous scene where Keith Richards and Mick Jagger first met on a tube, and Mick was carrying these blues records, Muddy Waters and stuff. So he looked at him and they said that, wow. And that's how they met. The rest, of course, is history. And they had, Johnson had so much of it. Like, Clapton once said that I became a guitarist because of Robert Johnson. Even Clapton. So they say there's a little
statement. Yeah, that is a great statement. But before we go on to, I think we have just jumped the gun a little. I wanted to, you all to share with us, and my God, believe you me, this is being recorded. It will be up on YouTube, this program. So even if those who are not listening to it live, where people have other timings, what you are discussing, the funda that you all are throwing, boss, this is absolutely amazing. It's such a lot of, it's a very rich content that you all are sharing with us, both of you all. Now, so please feel happy. But I'm trying to stay out of this conversation and not interrupt. So I'm trying to put up some of these questions that I think I should be asking can you all read the question box? Yeah, that's what I wanted to know.
Your question is, where was B.B. King? Well, B.B. King was possibly at that point of time, he was singing gospel at the street, at the street corner.
B.B. King came later,
yeah, much later,
not
and
much later.
much later, and possibly in his initial days, he was singing gospel at street corners, earning
Possibly.
few nickels here and there, and also trying to make a living by by composing and singing jingles for
Hmm.
for various things. I mean, one of the things, one of the jingles that he actually became quite famous for was for this heavily alcohol infused drink called Pepticon, which was used to be sold at that time. It had some 70% alcohol as a health tonic. So BB King was
Hmm.
composing jingles in his early days on the for the radio stations. So
Hmm.
I mean, and what we talk, I mean, Arjun, the point you made is that yes, the influence, his influence also, I mean, crossed the Atlantic and reached the British music scene. But for a very long period between his death and up till I think the mid 50s, uh, people outside South did not hear about his music, and that happened when and when after the when those there was a sort of a mini revolution when the white population started hunting for second-hand records at 78 RPM records at the thrift stores, and then
Hmm.
some of Johnson's recordings surfaced,
Hmm.
and that took his music further. I mean, wider, if you know what I mean. So
See, in London at the time you're talking about, there was this real blues cognoscenti. Okay, I mean there was, like Alex Corner's blues, this thing, and so there were these specialized blues club would play blues, and all the music, the blues from the States, that's what all these guys used to play, like whether it was Clapton or whether it was Alex Corner and all these guys, they were a very, very, close knit blues people. So that's how blues became, that got that thing in England. And then when these bands came over touring, led by the Beatles, of course, they sort of brought back the blues roots to
yeah,
America, and that got a major this thing, what they call the British invasion.
yeah.
Which led by the Beatles, then taken up by the Stones, and then all the rest, the Led Zeppelins and every one of the world.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, instantly, I mean, for what Johnson is also credited has a dubious distinction as the founding member of the infamous club called Club 27, which
Yes,
apparently,
he was the president of the club, I guess.
yeah, president, you can say the founding president of the club.
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
at 27 he died, and then
Yeah.
followed by a string of over a period of time, a string of
Yeah, which
extremely
is
talented
which is also very strange, right? After that, a
and
whole line of musicians, they all passed away at 27.
yeah,
Robert Johnson, then there is, Hendrix, Janis
yeah,
Joplin,
yeah,
Jim Morrison,
Brian Jones,
Brian Jones, Jim
and,
Morrison,
and
right
and
up
then
to Amy
yeah,
Winehouse today,
not to forget Kurt Cobain.
Kurt Cobain, all
Yeah,
27, all part of the 27 club, the famous over.
yeah. So I
But
mean,
it's quite, isn't it quite eerie? All these
very
fantastic musicians passing away at 27. It's quite crazy, right?
it is extremely eerie when you and all of them had a very they lived a life. Of course, they were
Well,
the most
of course.
phenomenal
Hmm.
talents, but they all
Hmm.
lived a life which almost mirrored Johnson's life. I mean,
Right.
carefree,
Exactly. Yeah.
hard charging, hard drinking,
Hmm.
uh,
Hmm.
lived it up. Whatever they did,
Yeah.
apart from the music, it was 100%, more than 100%. So I
Hmm.
mean, I mean, it's a very eerie kind of uh, a thread that runs through this Club
I know.
27. So
Hmm.
God knows how many. I mean, how many more we're going to join. I mean,
Yeah.
nobody wishes
Hmm.
that there are any more further members joining this club, but you never know. I mean, who could have
Hmm.
thought Amy Winehouse dying at 27?
Yeah.
So, but also the fact is that I mean, if we move beyond Johnson, once that the blues just went out of the narrow confines of Delta, it
Right.
virtually exploded.
Of
It
course.
exploded, and when Muddy Waters started touring, Howlin'
Right.
Wolf
Right.
started touring.
Yeah, like Howling Wolf, and they also came over to England. Where the kind of promoted by the Stones and Clapton, like
Yeah,
the London sessions which Clapton had with Howling Wolf,
yeah,
which is called the London sessions. So all that happened. After that, it exploded all over, not only in the States but in England, and then people started building on that. But as someone said, that there's a little bit of Robert Johnson in Muddy Waters, in B.B. King, in Howling Wolf, and all the original blues guys who came out from there, they had a little bit of Johnson, all of them
yeah.
in there.
True, and just to think of it, that he just wrote. I mean, he just sang or wrote or whatever, just 29 songs. I mean, there is a mystery
Yeah,
about it. There is a 30th song
exactly.
exists.
30th,
Nobody has
I
been
know.
able. So, but
They made
29.
that.
I mean,
There was that
29.
movie, no? There's that
Yeah,
movie called Crossroad with this Macchio, Ralph Macchio, and where this guy takes Willie Brown, and he's a young guy. He wants to be a blues player, and he's looking for that 30th song, and what all happens, and then he has to have a guitar contest with the Devil's representative, who was Steve Vai. Steve Vai
right,
is,
right.
and they play, and this guy wins, and so he retrieves Willie Brown's soul from the devil. So that's, of course, it's like a fiction. It's a movie.
Yeah,
It's a
but
lovely movie.
so I mean, for the other people like Morrison and all that sang more than 29 songs in their life,
Yeah,
Janis Joplin and
yeah, yeah,
everybody,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
he just, I mean, he just did 29 songs. That is, I mean, that speaks volumes about his influence. That even and parts of his songs also are still find mention in songs of, say, Rolling Stone, Led
Oh yeah,
Zeppelin,
oh yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
so there are
Oh yeah.
snatches of his lives
Hmm.
there. So I mean,
In fact, some of them intentionally used, lines which reminiscent of him as a homage
yeah,
to Johnson. Quite a few of them. In fact,
yeah,
Led Zeppelin did it. Clapton did it. So did Stones. So did their songs like "Love in Vain" and all that. They were,
yeah.
they were hmm.
And that Stone's famous song "Sympathy with the Devil" is also inspired by this.
I guess.
I mean,
Hmm.
to some extent, it is also relates to this in an oblique manner.
Mm, well, okay, yeah, you could make an argument for that, but that's slightly different. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sujit has a track somewhere. I mean, he's managed to. If we can, I mean, before we can wrap up, I think Sujit has a track. It would be nice if we can play a little bit of that track before, without getting hounded
Sure,
by any of the tech giants like YouTube and Facebook. So I
sure,
think
sure.
let's wait.
All right. What I suggest is, while I try to organize the track, because I have to keep in mind that I will not be, as you said rightly, Vivek, that I don't want to be hauled up, because last time I did all that for a program called Calling Elvis. Next day I got some 7 warrants coming from the net saying that I have violated and I'll be jailed and all sorts of things will happen. And
God.
what they did,
Really?
they sent you all that, and then they blocked my video. They blocked the video. Luckily, I had a Facebook recording of this Calling Elvis, which in fact Vivek was anchoring, and I therefore had to convert it into a YouTube and put it up on YouTube, and that's how it has. But otherwise, I don't have it's not there on Facebook. So while you all continue the conversation for the next few minutes, let me try and see if I am able to get that link that Vivek had sent me. Right? Carry on. You all carry on.
Yeah. Then once that blues scene exploded out of that narrow confines, then it was like proliferated. And interestingly, if we credit, we say that we agree on that Muddy Waters played an instrumental role in laying the foundation in Chicago. Isn't it so interesting that Chicago is basically is the heart and soul of jazz? It was where jazz was the music, and in the brothels and cabarets, that's where jazz found its soul. And it is in the same city, in the same places almost, that blues finds its feet, and people embrace it. And then of course then there is this also very interesting incident that we just touched upon initially. It was that John Hammond planning to host a show of Johnson's show at the Carnegie Hall in New York. And he sent his man to hunt for Johnson. And apparently, Johnson was notorious for disappearing. Nobody knew where to find him. I think we are good enough because beyond this time limit, here what we were discussing initially, that if you heard it carefully, you could almost hear two guitars playing there. One is that is what we were talking about earlier. That his guitar.
Yeah, it's as if there are two parts. One part and the other part answering that part. It was like this is something I don't think anyone had done till that time, and a lot of people tried, but there's something which is unique about it.
So if I could just sort of try to put this picture together, the person we were discussing on his 110th birth anniversary, a chap called Robert Johnson, of whom, by the way, I must tell this to my viewers, only 2 photographs exist. 2. One of which is there you just saw in that video, and I think both of them you just saw in the video. And there are obviously nothing, 16 millimeter, 8 millimeter, nothing of that sort. And then a man who goes missing with such a rich past, rich in every sense, his birth, his family, his wife, his childbirth, and there is, I'm sure you all know the story that his son never allowed him to meet the grandson, all that thrown in together. And at the end of it, this man was actually this lesser known Robert Johnson. had in fact also had somebody like Clapton saying that I play the guitar because of Robert Johnson, and the whole thing of the Beatles bringing back the British invasion, as you talked about, Arjun. Now, and the only document that we have really and very well put is in Netflix called "This Devil at the Crossroad." Do you think that at the end of the day, Robert Johnson should have a little more of awareness, little more of discussion, little more of deliberation, like all the other great blues? I don't think he has had his share, though the people he influenced from the 50s, the Beatles to the Zepp to everybody, have been talking about Robert Johnson. So I think in many ways than one, this has been a very satisfying kind of a chat show that we had just now, because Kahani Kancheti feels very proud and very good about the fact that we were one of those who were able to bring Robert Johnson in the public domain and talk about him with, my God, how much you all know. I just really wanted to ask this question, Jay, how much you all know, and what more do you all know about this business called the blues and the rocks and the R&Bs and everything? Well, I think those of us who had been with us today, I'm not bothered about the numbers, but I'm bothered about the fact that thanks to both of you, Arjun and Vivek, we were able to put up such a rich conversation. And
thanks, Pujeet.
But just hang on, don't go away. Yeah.
But before you wrap up, one little thing, Sujit, in the immortal words of Muddy Waters, was that he sang it in one song in Chicago somewhere. I don't know. I don't remember exactly where he sang this song first, but he sang this song that when blues got pregnant, and they named the baby rock and roll. So that is where.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And that is very interesting. It is like from the blues, like, the rock and roll came out of blues. So obviously, Keith Richards says that rock and roll is nothing but blues with a 4/4 beat. That's what Keith Richards said once.
So I mean, before Elvis rocked the jailhouse, these guys were rocking it in remote regions, in the cotton fields and the juke joints of Mississippi and the Delta. So that is how I'd like to put it in the context.
Right.
Amazing.
True.
Excellent. It's such a rich discussion. Now, just don't go away. Hang on for a minute. I have a few words for my audience over here, because I want to tell my audience, just give me a minute. I want to invite them for the show tomorrow, which is on the Ray 100 series that we are doing at Kahani Kancheti. And we are taking on, just a minute. Here we are. Yeah. This is for my viewers tomorrow. Starting tomorrow, every Sunday at 7 o'clock, we are discussing one Ray woman character. Like, to start with, tomorrow we are discussing Mrinmoyi from Shamapti, and Kahani Kancheti will be talking to Ahana Chaudhuri, who has already, we have one of our articles on Mrinmoyi published in our website. Please read that. It's mind-boggling and it's beautifully written by Ahana. And Ahana will be coming tomorrow to discuss with Kahani Kancheti the character Mrinmoyi. And following that, next Sunday on 16th, we'll be discussing Charulata. We'll be discussing Charulata next Sunday. And that we'll be doing it with Professor Nandini Sen of Delhi University. And we will go on to discuss Bimola the following Sunday with Anjuman Rosi from Bangladesh. And then we will take on Sharbojaya. And it will go on every Sunday. So please keep watching and following us and Kahani Kancheti every Sunday. For the next 8 Sundays, starting tomorrow, we will have one female character from Ray. We are also having a lot of blogs, a lot of articles, and we would like to request anybody who wants to write anything on Satyajit Ray's films, memoirs, any character you want to discuss and analyze, you want to talk Feluda, and if particularly to my advertising friends, if they are here, talk about his graphics. The art group can talk about his book covers. type fonts, whatever.
Book cover,
So-
illustrations.
So we are open. We want to do a complete thing on Ray. I have a target of coming out with 30 articles, and I don't want to stop up 8 Sundays discussing Ray, Ray's female characters. We will go expanding into other areas also. But at the same time, we are also going to run. So most likely, very soon, Kahani Kancheti will be discussing something on a Saturday as also a Sunday. Since we have discussed music today, I want to close this session by paying our tribute, remembering Vanraj Bhatia, whom we lost yesterday. Now, to many of us, we have been great fans of Vanraj, and we lost him yesterday at the age of 93. Our generation will remember him for the title songs, the official soundtracks, the original soundtrack, that he had scored from Tamas to so many films, and the jingle that he scored for the advertising people in our advertising jingles. And Arjun, I remind you that the Dig Jam film that we had done once the music was by Vanraj. So thank you very much for attending. Thank you very much for attending the session. And thank you, Arjun. And thank you, Vivek. And I look forward to meeting you all again tomorrow at 7 o'clock to discuss Mrinmoy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Shujit. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Sujit. Thanks.
Thanks, Arjun. Thanks. Pleasure talking to you.
Right.